Sam's chair over there. That's where I'm at. Actually,
Okay, we're live now.
That was Alice.
Okay, we're live, Senator Sears.
Judiciary, our first meeting of the new year, and welcome to the 3 new members of the committee, and welcome back to Senator Brewer. Welcome back to Peggy and our staff. And my internet connection's unstable, so for some reason, if I freeze, that's why. Thought I'd start out by introducing myself and then go around the room and staff as well as members introduce themselves, and then we can get going. I'm Dick Sears. I've represented Bennington County for the last 30 years, believe it or not, and some other towns in Windham County that we took from Windham because we didn't have enough population in Bennington. But I've been a member of the Senate Judiciary Committee my entire time in the Senate, first as a member under John Bloomer's father, believe it or not, and then as vice chair my second term, and then became chair my third term. So we've done some amazing work in this committee. We've had wonderful attorneys that work with us that you'll get to know if you didn't already know them from your work in the House. And Peggy Delaney is the top-notch committee assistant, and we've been fortunate to have great committee assistants on the committee in my entire time, starting with Margaret Lucenti, who was a legend of her own. I remember her coming to work one day, and I said, "Margaret, how come you're still working?" She said, "Because all my kids are retired, and they come home and bug me, and I need to get out of the house." Career was in juvenile justice. I worked first for the Vermont Department of Corrections starting in 1969, and then went to Bennington and opened a group home for troubled youth in 1971. Stayed there till 2006 when I retired. So I've had a long history with juvenile issues, and proud of the work that this committee's done to reform both the juvenile and the adult justice system over the years. But there's still work to be done. I guess I'll turn it off to the vice chair.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Senator Sears. I'm Margaret Hashim. I previously served 1 term in the House on Judiciary Committee. My job outside of the legislature, I work at a law firm in Brattleboro, mainly focusing on civil rights cases. Before that, I was a state trooper for about 7.5 years in the Brattleboro Westminster Barracks. So I'm happy to be here. Okay, I'll just pass it this way.
I'm Senator Phil Baruth from Chittenden County, my 3rd term on Judiciary, and delighted to be back and to have the same help from Ledge Council and excited about the new committee.
My name is Ben Novgrosky. I'm one of the 3 Judiciary Ledge Council members. This is my 2nd session, and loving working here, and I feel very fortunate to be working with so many great members and colleagues. Prior to starting here, I worked for 5 years in private practice doing civil litigation mostly and a little bit of criminal defense. I was 2 years at OPR as a prosecutor, and then I came here. Happy to be assistant to
Good morning. I'm Senator Bob Norris from Franklin County. I actually represent 12 of the 15 townships in Franklin County, and I also represent the town of Alberg in Grandell County. This is my 2nd term in the House. My 1st term was on House Judiciary for the past 2 years. Got a little crazy, ran for Senate, so here I am. Happy to be on Judiciary. Most of my background as most of you are lawyers in law enforcement. I spent the better part of 30 years in law enforcement. Enjoyed myself there and look forward to working with the committee members.
Senator Tanya Vyhovsky. I served one term in the House representing Essex. I'm also in Chittenden County. And when my paid work outside of this is as a social worker, where I work mostly with youth and transition age young adults. And I'm also very happy to be here.
Happy to have all of you. I'm sorry.
What'd you say, Senator Sears?
Go ahead, Michelle.
Oh, sorry.
No,
So Michelle Childs, this is my 25th session this year.
Really?
Wow. Yeah, and so I feel like it's a big one. I started as an intern when I was a law student. So I'm originally from Atlanta, but came up here for school. Never thought I would stay, but you know how Vermont is. We got a lot of people like that who come up here for school and can't leave. And I've always worked on judiciary, so I totally lucked out. When I was a clerk, they said they gave me my pick of committees, and I picked judiciary. And so I've been working with Senator Sears all that time. And I've got two daughters. Audrey is 13 and Sadie is 15, and we live in Berry City. And our team, we cover, such a broad range of issues. I tend to focus on family law, so we do all the divorce and child custody and child support stuff. I do adoption. I do domestic and sexual violence issues. I do all the drug issues. So I do all the cannabis stuff, but also anything related to regulated drugs, and then just kind of a hodgepodge of criminal justice issues. And it's the best committee to be on. Eric and I are always very clear about that when we come in on the orientation thing. That's why we're still here. Always interesting.
We're very lucky indeed. My name is Eric Fitzpatrick. Nice to see everybody again this year. As Michelle said, I'm very fortunate to be attorneys for the Judiciary Committee working on this incredible breadth and diversity, of issues. Let me get here. Excuse me, I'm trying to do that. The first thing that I do a walkthrough. Excuse me, but I haven't been here quite as long as Michelle, but it's very close. It's hard to believe. I think 22 years. It's when I started. Like Ben, when I got out of law school, I worked as a trial lawyer for about 5 years for a big firm in Burlington. It was a great practice. I really enjoyed it. So I wasn't actually looking to come down here necessarily, but I've always been a policy wonk. Michelle was here already.
And a great writer.
Oh, thank you. That's right. I was Michelle's.
He was my writing instructor when I was a first year law student, and he was my third year. Like, he was a dean's fellow and was my writing instructor. So I learned legal writing 1 from Eric, and then we became best friends.
I came full circle because then you showed me how to do this job.
Yes.
Anyway, it is, as Michelle said, great to be with you. When she let me know that the position here was available, always being someone who's interested in policy, that's what made me think of leading trial practice. And it's been an amazing 20 years. As Senator Sears said, the accomplishments and things that we've worked on in this committee during that time is really tremendous. I think we take a lot of pride in it, and we appreciate being able to continue working on it with all of you. So looking forward to another great year together.
Awesome. I'm Peggy Delaney, and this is my 7th session with Judiciary. I've been working with Senator Sears, and I agree with them. It is absolutely the best committee. They do amazing work here, and I love being part of it in some small way. I'm also the supervisor for all the community systems in the building, so I do have another job. I moved to Vermont 15 years ago after being a weekend warrior skier. I live up at Sugarbush. I have 3 kids, 24-year-old twins and a 23-year-old. And it's the best job I've ever had. I absolutely love it. I love working with Senator Sears and the attorneys, and it's a great committee.
Thank you all very much, and congratulations on your 25th anniversary. I realized I knew it had been a while, but 25 years is amazing, and you've done amazing work. I think of all the work we've done together over the years, particularly some of the things, civil unions and adoption and other cannabis things. I'd like to just so it's clear, unless there's an objection, my hope is that we would be free to meet remotely, and witnesses who wish to be remote would be able to do so. I think it's very helpful. And Peggy usually sets that up. But if we set a limit of 12 in the room, if that's okay with folks, I think that would be helpful. Also, I don't mind committee members meeting remotely if you need to. That's certainly something we can do until at least March 2nd. The thing that, needs to happen for this committee to work, and we're fortunate to have Senator Baruth who wrote them on the committee, but it does mean that he'll be out from time to time. And so it's going to be difficult to have the committee if committee members aren't able to be here on a particular day. And so we need to keep that in mind too. Or they have to step out for a period of time for some other thing. And I understand we all have other duties and we all have to step out from time to time, but as much as possible, it'd be helpful to let Peggy know so we can try to schedule around any absences. The other thing I wanted to say is that, and I have not talked to Senator Baruth about it, don't think, but it may be time to move cannabis to more of the economic development and agriculture front. We've been dealing with cannabis for years, and more the issues are taxing agriculture and, quite frankly, economic development. Some of them may still be judiciary issues, but I think the bulk of them have kind of given our work over the years. That's one thought. The other is that change, for those of you familiar with the House Judiciary, we also deal with corrections policy in here. And so that is also a priority for this committee. So anything to do with this corrections policy that would be in the House Institutions and Corrections Committee is part of this committee as well. I'll start with my priorities this year are, and we'll talk more about it next week. It's continuation of Justice Reinvestment 2, which is really our reform of the system in Vermont. We've been at for several years. And Wednesday, we're scheduled to discuss that. Ben has been the basic draft person for many of the initiatives. And to go over what we've done and what we plan to do over the next few years and next year on Justice Reinvestment 2. It is, a major recognition of changes to Vermont laws where we can continue to be one of the safest states in the nation, but also at the same time have more corrections policy. The second thing for me is what many of you have seen in your own communities, and that's an uptick in firearm violence. So that's a huge priority for me for the coming session, dealing with some of these issues of firearm violence. We've seen, shootings in Bennington and murders that we, just did not see before. A state's attorney put it well, I think. She said that what has changed is the willingness to use the gun. We've had guns, firearms in our community, obviously, forever, but it's the willingness to use them in criminal activity. Those are my basic priorities for this year. I hope we get to deal with everybody's priorities. That would be the plan. Then we go around the room and talk about anybody's priorities. So I'd like to do that today.
Sure. Well, should I just go next?
Yeah.
So thank you, Senator Sears. So my first priority really is to learn as much as I can as vice chair here. And I know it's not often where, first year legislators end up serving as vice chair. So I just want to make sure that in this position, I'm able to do a good job of making sure that, our agenda is put together real well and we have witnesses from who hold different perspectives, have the opportunity to testify. When it comes to policy, my top three, I would have to say, our criminal and civil dockets are very backed up. For example, I'm still getting calls to testify on cases that I investigated when I was a trooper back in 2016. And before I even had an idea that I was going to be a politician. So there's a lot of cases that are backed up, and I want to make sure that people have access or have their right to a speedy trial still exists. The opioid epidemic, that's another priority for me. I want to make sure that we're doing good work in that area to make sure that people are getting access to the resources they need to escape addiction and get back on their feet. And the last one is mental health and the intersection with the criminal justice world. I know there's also a lot lacking in that area with what we're providing to people who are going through crisis or just have chronic mental health challenges.
I'll just mention a
Thank
couple.
you. I just want, if I could just comment, Bill.
Yeah.
I just want to let you know that on Thursday next week, we're going to have a joint session with House Judiciary on the backlog.
Oh, great.
And hopefully find out why and what, how they can do it. Go ahead, Phil, I'm sorry.
Okay, so Senator Sears mentioned that we also cover corrections in this committee. And so as Tanya knows and maybe others, the women's prison in Chittenden County has been a longstanding issue. We're moving forward on design for a new facility, but there are understandably different issues that have to be worked out even before we can select a design. So that's something I have my eye on. And then gun safety legislation, Uvalde happened when we were out of session. And, so there's been a lot of talk, a lot of work, a lot of drafting going on in the last 9 months. And that will be beginning to move on both sides, House and Senate. And so I'll have my eye on that. It all goes through this committee. We'll all have to talk about it and get on one page about it eventually. So I'm very excited that we'll have that discussion. So.
Thank you. I can't say that I have a lot of priorities as I come into this committee. I do have many concerns, some of which don't necessarily go along with this committee, but my priority had to identify was to work as earnestly as I can with committee members and to make sure that the bills that come through and that we pass and work together on are good bills for Vermonters, our constituents within Franklin County. So I look forward to working with the group.
I actually come in with a handful of priorities and really taking a lens of a mental health provider and someone really looking at focusing on prevention. So I'm coming in with wanting to make some tweaks and changes to our cannabis legislation that would land mostly in this committee. I'm also really interested in looking at how we decriminalize offenses that really shouldn't be within our criminal justice system, but should be within our mental health and substance use system. I am looking to do some overarching prison reform as we are looking at building new facilities, really thinking about how we make those trauma informed and based in restoration and rehabilitation rather than retribution. I'm hoping to do some work on police oversight and have a larger conversation about community safety and probably some bail reform work too. Just a few things.
You said bail reform, I didn't catch
I did say bail reform.
it. Bail reform? I'm sorry, maybe I'm not getting through.
If you turn your camera off, Dick, because it's intermittent.
Yeah, I don't know why. Is that better? I didn't hear you, Tanya. Did you say bail reform? That's what
I did say bail reform.
Oh, okay, good, thank you. Yeah, I think we're all headed, I mean, there will be, there's always one thing that we will be looking at, and a couple of you mentioned mental health, and I do think it's an important factor. I personally, and I didn't list it there, and I should have. We're hopefully working closely with the Health and Welfare Committee on some issues there. But one of the things that is really concerning to me is our system has been, for lack of a better term, broken, at least since Hurricane Irene. And I met last week, 2 weeks ago, with emergency room nurses in Bennington, and the things that are going on in our hospitals trying to deal with mental health crises that they're not equipped to deal with, and then not having places for people is very disconcerting. And there a lot of assaults are taking place, but more as well as verbal assaults, as well as physical assaults in our emergency rooms. And it takes away from their ability to treat other patients, but it also takes away from their ability to treat those who are having a mental health crisis. And I think it's a real concern, and I'm glad that it'll be part of what we try to do this year. I lost my. Whoop, whoop, whoop. Why am I not seeing all of you?
We can hear you.
Oh, okay. Now I can see all of you. Thank you. All right. No, I can't. Are there other things that anybody would like to bring up today? I know, Peggy, maybe you could just briefly go over next week's agenda and let folks know that we plan to start taking up bills on Friday next week.
Sure, let me grab my, hopefully I have it with me. Tuesday, I believe Senator Sears told me that there's some type of, is it sexual harassment prevention training or some type of training? So I don't think we're gonna meet after the floor on Tuesday, so we're not meeting on Tuesday. On Wednesday, we're gonna talk about Dr. Reinvestment 2 and bail and conditions of release. And Wednesday, I'm sorry, that was Wednesday. Thursday is the joint hearing with House Judiciary on court backlog. And then Friday morning, we're gonna talk about increased use of firearms in criminal activity. I will let you know that I post the agenda every Friday by the end of the day. So you can look at it, and I update it whenever there's a change. So that's the best place to go to see what the agenda is. I won't send anybody Zoom invitations unless I do to the witnesses, of course, but to members, I don't send Outlook or anything, just look on the GA website for the agenda. And if you're going to be remote, just let me know and I'll send you the Zoom information. I plan on printing out the bills, but not other handouts, because, we'll be sharing the screen. Obviously, if there's something special that you want me to print out, I'm happy to do that, but I'll put the bills and any new versions of the bill printed out for you guys. Trying to think, what else?
Can I jump in?
Sure.
Senator Sears, just to give, and you may already know, but just so the committee knows as well, for purposes of the joint hearing next Thursday, there's a short form House bill that was introduced today, H12, that's for purposes of that hearing, is about reducing the court backlog. So you may want to review that prior to the hearing next week. H12.
Senator Sears, do we need to pick a clerk?
Oh, yes, thank you for reminding me. Who would like to be the clerk?
I'd be happy to take on that.
Sure.
Be great. So that's a good volunteer. But
Yeah.
you do have to get the bills from the secretary.
And then give them to me.
I might need a little coaching on how that all goes, but I figure it's a great place for me to learn.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, and obviously, if you guys need anything, please just ask me.
I try to meet with the House chair. And is Wednesday good for you, like at noon time, or Peggy would have set that up?
What are you saying, Senator Sears?
Meeting with the House and the House Chair and Vice Chair of House Judiciary, with the Senate Judiciary Chair and Vice Chair, every other week.
Oh, okay, yep. Does that work for you? Noon on Thursday?
Yes, noon on Wednesday.
Every other.
If like Wednesday, Wednesday at noon time, or 12:15, whatever. And usually the staff comes as well, so we're all on the same page, just to not. The worst thing you can do is take up their bills by mistake.
So you want that at 12 every other Wednesday in Senate Judiciary?
Well, it's up to Representative Lon what he can make, but yeah, 12:15 or 12.
I'll check with him.
Will that
We're
be starting
usually on the
next week?
floor at 1. But I'd like to make it routine.
Senator, just curious, did you want that starting next week for the first meeting?
Yeah, that'd probably be a good idea.
I'll send you guys an outlook invite once I check.
Great.
I can do Wednesday or Thursday. It's up to Representative Lamont.
And the meeting on Thursday, I'll remind you guys, but it's at the Pavilion. Room 270. I've never been there. It's at,
The joint hearing.
yeah, we're starting at 9:15 because there's a caucus in there before.
What was that room number again?
270, it's on the agenda, it'll be on the agenda.
Thanks.
And I'll remind you guys.
Was it taking on the elevator downstairs?
No, I think we've covered everything. Is there anything else anybody wants to take up? And I will get together with all of you, and feel free to chat over if there's something. I do appreciate what Bob had to say about doing good work, because when we make a mistake in here, there can be huge consequences either way. Somebody gets a longer sentence than anybody ever intended, or somebody faces, a loophole that they get away with some crime without being held accountable. It's important that we get it right in here and that we do a good job. Not that it's not important everywhere, but particularly here where you're talking about people's freedom. Great. Man.